My daughter-in-law burned my wedding dress in the backyard incinerator, and when I found out why, I realized she'd been planning to erase me from this family for years. My name is Barbara. I'm 73 years old now, and I've learned that some stories take a lifetime to understand. This one started 50 years ago, in a small apartment above a bakery on Maple Street. But it didn't really begin until the day I opened my attic and found an empty garment bag where my most precious memory used to hang. I need to tell you this story the way it happened, not the way people tell it at church socials, with all the details smoothed over and the ugliness tucked away like old linens in a drawer. I need to tell you the truth, because somewhere out there, there's another grandmother who might be going through the same thing, and she needs to know she's not crazy. She needs to know her memories matter. Let me take you back first, back to when I was young. It was 1972 when I married Thomas, April 15th, a Saturday that felt like the whole world had been scrubbed clean just for us. I was 23 years old, and I thought I knew everything about love. I didn't, of course. Nobody does at 23. But I knew enough to recognize something real when it walked into my life and asked me to dance at a church social. Thomas was a carpenter. He had hands that could build anything, tables, chairs, entire houses from the ground up. But what I loved most was how gentle those hands were when they held mine. He'd come home with sawdust in his hair, smelling like pine and honest work, and he'd kiss my forehead before he even took off his boots. We didn't have much money. My parents had both passed by the time I was 21. My mother to cancer. My father to a heart that just gave up 6 months later. I was working as a secretary at the county clerk's office, typing up deeds and marriage certificates for other people, wondering if I'd ever get to have my own. When Thomas proposed, he did it on a Tuesday evening in my tiny kitchen. No ring yet. Just him, dropping to one knee on that cracked linoleum floor, saying, "Barbara Jean, I don't have much to offer except these 2 hands and a heart that's already yours. But if you'll have me, I promise I'll build us a good life." I said yes before he even finished the sentence. The dress. Let me tell you about the dress. I couldn't afford anything from the bridal shops downtown. Those white confections in the windows might as well have been made of moonlight for all the chance I had of wearing one. But I had my mother's sewing machine, the old Singer that still sat in the corner of my apartment, and I had her fabric scissors with the pearl handles. I saved for 3 months. Every Friday I'd take my paycheck, set aside money for rent and groceries, and put whatever was left in a coffee tin under my bed. $17.32. That's what I had by February. It sounds like nothing now, doesn't it? But back then, it was enough. I found the fabric at Myers Dry Goods down on 4th Street. It was ivory silk, not pure white, because I couldn't afford that, but a warm cream color that reminded me of Sunday morning light coming through kitchen curtains. The moment I touched it, I knew. It felt cool and smooth, like water running through my fingers. Mrs. Meyer, bless her, gave me a discount. She'd known my mother. She wrapped up 8 yards of that silk in brown paper and tied it with string. And when she handed it to me, she said, "Your mama would be proud, sweetheart. You make something beautiful." I spent 6 weeks on that dress. Every evening after work, I'd sit at my mother's sewing machine, the lamp pulled close, and I'd stitch. The bodice was fitted, with tiny covered buttons running down the back, 38 of them, each one I made by hand, wrapping little circles of wood with scraps of the silk. The sleeves were long and tapered. The skirt fell straight, simple, no layers of tulle or lace. I couldn't afford lace. But I did have one piece, one precious piece. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had given my mother a handkerchief on her wedding day. It was Belgian lace, delicate as a spider web, with tiny flowers worked into the border. My mother had carried it at her wedding, tucked into her sleeve. After she died, I found it in her jewelry box, wrapped in tissue paper. I carefully, so carefully, stitched that lace onto the neckline of my dress. It took me 4 hours to do it right, my fingers cramping, my eyes burning. But when I finished, it looked like it had always belonged there, like 3 generations of love had been woven into that dress. The night before the wedding, I hung it on the back of my bedroom door. I couldn't stop looking at it. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't magazine perfect. But it was mine. Every stitch held a piece of my heart. Every seam held memories of my mother's hands guiding mine as she taught me to sew when I was 9 years old. I got married in that dress. I walked down the aisle of St. Catherine's Church with my uncle's arm in mine. He was the closest thing I had to family left. And I saw Thomas waiting for me at the altar, the look on his face. I can still see it, like I was the only thing in the world worth looking at. We were married by Father Mackenzie. We said our vows. Thomas's voice shook when he said, "I do." And I loved him even more for that tremble, for that honesty. We had our reception in the church basement. Someone brought a record player. We danced to Can't Help Falling in Love on linoleum tiles, while our friends clapped and laughed around us. I remember the weight of the silk on my skin, the way it moved when Thomas spun me around, the scratch of his new suit against my cheek when he pulled me close. Mrs. Chen from the restaurant where Thomas sometimes worked brought us egg rolls. The Jenkins family brought potato salad. Someone made a cake, chocolate, because that's what we could afford. It wasn't a fancy wedding, but it was ours, and it was perfect, and I wore that dress like it was made of starlight. After the wedding, I cleaned the dress as carefully as I could. I hung it in a garment bag, a nice one, the kind with a zipper and a clear window, and I stored it in my closet. When Thomas and I moved into our first real house 3 years later, the dress came with us. When our son Michael was born in 1975, I'd sometimes take it out and hold it, remembering the day his father and I promised to build a life together. The dress moved with us through 4 different houses over the years. When we finally bought our forever home, the one I'm sitting in right now, I put it in the attic, in a cedar chest that Thomas built for me. He lined it with acid-free paper. He put cedar blocks in the corners to keep the moths away. "This is important to you," he said. It wasn't a question. "It's our beginning," I told him. "I want to keep it safe." And I did. For 48 years I kept it safe. Thomas passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack. Quick, the doctors said. He didn't suffer. That's what everyone tells you. As if knowing someone didn't suffer makes the hole in your heart any smaller. We'd had 50 years together. 50 good years. Not perfect. No marriage is. But good. Real. We'd raised our son, Michael. We'd weathered financial troubles and health scares and all the small storms that blow through a long marriage. We'd sat on our porch in the evenings, holding hands, watching the sun go down, not needing to say much, because we'd already said everything that mattered. After Thomas died, the house felt too big, too quiet. Michael wanted me to move in with him and his wife, Jessica. They'd been married for 8 years by then, and they had a nice house on the other side of town. But I wasn't ready. This house held Thomas. His coffee mug was still in the cabinet. His reading glasses were still on the nightstand. I wasn't ready to let go. Michael would come by twice a week to check on me. He'd mow the lawn, fix things that broke, bring me groceries. He's a good son. I want you to understand that. Michael has a good heart. He always has. But Jessica. Let me tell you about Jessica. She came into our lives in 2015. Michael brought her to Sunday dinner one afternoon in May, and I remember thinking she was lovely. Blonde hair, bright smile, very polite. She worked in marketing, something with social media that I didn't quite understand. She wore expensive-looking clothes and carried a handbag that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. But she was nice to me. She asked about my garden. She complimented the pot roast. She laughed at Thomas's jokes. "I think she's the one, Ma," Michael said after they left that night. He was helping me with the dishes, his hands in the soapy water the way he'd done since he was 10 years old. She seems very nice, I said, and I meant it. They got married in 2016. A big wedding, much bigger than ours had been. Jessica's family had money. Her father owned some kind of consulting business, and they paid for everything. It was at a country club. There was a 7-piece band. The flowers alone probably cost more than my first car. I wore a navy dress I'd had for years. Jessica had offered to take me shopping, to help me find something more appropriate, but I'd declined. The navy dress was fine. At the reception, I watched Michael dance with Jessica, and I felt that particular bittersweet joy that mothers feel when their sons get married. You're happy. Of course you're happy. But there's also a little ache, a little sense of letting go. Jessica was kind to me during those first few years. She'd call me sometimes, ask how I was doing. On my birthday, she and Michael would take me out to dinner. At Christmas, she'd give me thoughtful gifts, a nice shawl, a book I'd mentioned wanting to read, a gift certificate to the garden centre. But there were little moments, small things I noticed but didn't say anything about. The way she'd rearrange things when she came to visit, moving my photographs, straightening pillows that didn't need straightening. The comments about how cluttered my house was, how I should downsize all the old stuff I was hanging on to. Barbara, you really should get rid of some of these old books, she said once, running her finger along the shelf in my living room. You could have such a cleaner space. Those books were Thomas's. He'd collected them for years. Mysteries, mostly. He liked a good whodunit. I like them where they are, I said. Gently. Always gently. She smiled. Of course. I'm just trying to help. After Thomas died, Jessica's visits became more frequent. She'd come by when Michael was at work, usually with her laptop, saying she was working from home and thought she'd keep me company. I appreciated it at first. The house was so quiet. Having someone there, even if she spent most of the time on her computer, was comforting. But then she started making suggestions. Barbara, have you thought about what you're going to do with all of Thomas's things? Barbara, this house is really too much for you to maintain alone. Barbara, Michael and I have been talking, and we think you should really consider moving into an assisted living facility. Nothing too drastic, just somewhere with less upkeep. I was 71 years old. I drove myself to the grocery store. I made my own meals. I kept my house clean. I tended my garden. I wasn't ready for assisted living. I'm fine here, I'd say. She'd sigh. A patient sigh, like I was being difficult. I know you think you're fine, but Michael worries. We both worry. One afternoon, this was about 6 months after Thomas passed, I came home from the grocery store to find Jessica in my attic. The attic door was open, the stairs pulled down. I could hear her moving around up there. Jessica, I called up. What are you doing? Her head appeared at the opening. Oh, Barbara, I didn't hear you come in. I was just looking to see if there's anything up here worth keeping. Michael and I were thinking we could help you organize, maybe have an estate sale. My heart went cold. I didn't ask you to do that. I know, but please come down. She came down, brushing dust off her expensive jeans. Barbara, I'm just trying to help. There's so much junk up there. Junk. She called it junk. Those are my memories, I said, quietly, but firmly. I'll decide what to do with them when I'm ready. She smiled that smile again. Of course, I didn't mean to overstep, but she had overstepped, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a tiny alarm bell started ringing. I should have paid more attention to that bell. Winter came. The holidays were hard without Thomas. Michael and Jessica invited me to spend Christmas at their house, and I went, grateful not to be alone. Jessica cooked a beautiful dinner. Everything was perfect. The decorations, the table settings, the wine. But it all felt a little cold to me, a little staged. Jessica gave me a gift. It was a brochure for a retirement community called Meadowbrook Estates. I should have paid more attention to that bell. Winter came. The holidays were hard without Thomas. Michael and Jessica invited me to spend Christmas at their house, and I went, grateful not to be alone. Jessica cooked a beautiful dinner. Everything was perfect. The decorations, the table settings, the wine. But it all felt a little cold to me, a little staged. Jessica gave me a gift. It was a brochure for a retirement community called Meadowbrook Estates. Just something to look at, she said, smiling. They have wonderful amenities. A pool, organized activities, a dining hall. You wouldn't have to cook or clean or worry about anything. I looked at Michael. He looked uncomfortable. Ma, we're just worried about you, he said. The house is a lot to take care of. I can take care of my house, I said. Jessica's smile tightened. Just a little. Just enough for me to notice. Of course you can, she said. We're just thinking about the future. I took the brochure home and put it in the recycling bin. Spring came. I planted tomatoes and peppers in my garden, the way I did every year. I went to church on Sundays. I had coffee with my neighbor Dorothy every Wednesday morning. I lived my life. Michael started coming by less often. When I'd call him, he always sounded distracted. Sorry, Ma. I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back? Usually, he didn't call back. When I mentioned it to Dorothy, she gave me a knowing look. Wives, she said. Sometimes they don't like sharing their husbands with their mothers-in-law, especially if they think there's an inheritance involved. What inheritance? I said. I don't have anything. But that wasn't entirely true. Thomas and I had paid off the house years ago. It wasn't fancy, but it was in a good neighborhood, and property values had gone up. If I sold it, it would probably go for close to $300,000. Maybe more. And I had Thomas's life insurance. Nothing extravagant, but enough. I'd put it in a savings account, not sure what to do with it yet. I pushed the thought away. Michael wasn't like that. Jessica wasn't like that. I was being paranoid. Grief does strange things to your mind. But then came June 14th, a Friday. I remember because it was exactly 2 years and 3 months since Thomas died. I'd been feeling melancholy all morning. I decided I wanted to see the dress. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed to touch something that reminded me of him, of us, of the beginning. I went up to the attic. The cedar chest was in the corner, right where it had always been. I opened it. The garment bag was there. But when I pulled it out, it felt wrong. Too light. I unzipped it. Empty. My dress was gone. I stood there for a long moment, not understanding, not believing. The garment bag was in my hands, but there was nothing inside, just the faint smell of cedar and the ghost of silk. I searched the chest. I searched the attic. I went through every box, every corner, every inch of that space. Nothing. My wedding dress was gone. I don't remember going down the stairs. I don't remember sitting in the kitchen. But suddenly I was there, at the table, staring at nothing, my mind racing. Where could it be? Had I moved it? No. I never would have moved it without remembering. Could someone have taken it? But who? Who would? And then I thought of Jessica. In my attic. 6 months ago. No, she wouldn't. But the alarm bell was ringing again, louder now. I called Michael. He didn't answer. I left a message. Michael, it's your mother. I need you to call me back. It's important. He called back 3 hours later. Sorry, Ma. What's up? My wedding dress is missing. Silence on the other end. Your wedding dress. From the attic. From the cedar chest. It's gone. Are you sure you didn't? I'm sure, Michael. Someone took it. More silence. Then, Ma, maybe you just forgot where you put it. You know, after Dad died, you moved a lot of things around. I did not move my wedding dress. Okay. I'll come by tomorrow and we'll look for it together, all right? He came by the next day. Jessica came with him. We went up to the attic. I showed them the empty garment bag. I don't understand, Michael said. He looked genuinely confused. Who would take a wedding dress? Jessica was standing behind him, her arms crossed. She looked at me with something I couldn't quite read. Pity? Concern? Barbara, she said softly, are you sure you're not forgetting things? It happens at your age. Maybe you moved it somewhere and just don't remember. I looked at her. really looked at her, and I saw it, just for a second. Something in her eyes, something cold. I don't forget things, I said. Of course not, she said. I'm just saying, grief can do strange things to memory. Maybe, I know what grief does, I said. This isn't that. Michael was looking between us, uncomfortable. Ma, maybe Jess is right. Maybe you just need to. I need to find my dress. We spent another hour searching the attic, then the whole house. Michael was thorough. I'll give him that. He checked every closet, every cupboard. But I already knew we wouldn't find it, because whoever had taken it away, out of my house, gone. After they left, I sat on my porch and thought. I thought about Jessica in my attic, about her suggestions that I get rid of things, sell the house, move away, about the way she'd looked at me today, with that false sympathy covering something harder underneath. And I thought about something else, something I'd overheard at Christmas. I'd gotten up in the night to use the bathroom. Michael and Jessica's house was small enough that voices carried. I'd heard them in the kitchen talking in low voices. Jessica. Just drag this out forever. She's sitting on that house doing nothing with it. Michael. She's my mother, Jessie. Jessica. I know. And I love her. You know I do. But we could really use that money. The remodel alone would… Michael. We'll talk about this later. I'd gone back to bed, telling myself I'd misheard. But I hadn't. Now, sitting on my porch, I faced the truth I'd been avoiding. Jessica wanted me out of this house, and my wedding dress, the thing that tied me most deeply to Thomas, to this life we'd built. She'd seen it as just another piece of junk in her way. But I still didn't have proof, and I couldn't accuse her without proof. So I waited. And I watched, and I paid attention. 2 weeks later, I was having coffee with Dorothy on her back porch. Her yard backed up to mine, and from where we sat, we could see both of our properties. Dorothy, I said, did you notice anyone at my house in the last few months? Anyone who shouldn't have been there? She thought about it. Well, Jessica's there a lot. But that's normal, right? How often is a lot? Oh, I don't know. Once or twice a week. Usually during the day when you're out. My errands. I went to the grocery store every Tuesday morning. I had a standing hair appointment every third Thursday. Bible study on Wednesday evenings. Did you ever see her take anything out of the house? Dorothy's eyes sharpened. Why? What's missing? I told her about the dress. Her face went still. Oh, Barbara. So did you? Did you see her take anything? I'm not sure. Maybe. There was one day back in the spring. I saw her carrying some bags to her car. Black garbage bags. I just assumed she was helping you clean. Black garbage bags. My wedding dress would fit in a garbage bag. When was this? Dorothy thought. April? Early April, I think. I remember because I was putting out my pansies. Early April. That would have been about 2 months after Jessica had been in my attic. Did you see what she did with the bags? She put them in her trunk. I sat very still. Did she take them to a dumpster, do you know? No, she drove off with them. So Jessica had taken bags from my house. Maybe the dress was in one of those bags. But where would she have taken it? And why? Why throw away someone's wedding dress? It made no sense unless you wanted to hurt someone, unless you wanted to erase their past, unless you were trying to make them feel unmoored, forgetful, like they were losing their grip on reality, or unless you wanted to get rid of evidence that someone had once loved them, had chosen them, had built a life with them, evidence that they weren't just an old woman in the way. I needed more information, but I couldn't confront Jessica directly. Not yet. I called Michael again. Honey, I want to take you and Jessica out to dinner. My treat. Would you be free this Friday? He sounded surprised. Sure, Ma. That would be nice. We met at a restaurant downtown, a nice Italian place that Thomas and I used to go to for anniversaries. I chose it deliberately. Over dinner, I kept the conversation light. I asked about their lives, their work. Jessica talked about a new campaign she was working on. Michael talked about a project at his job. He was an accountant at a mid-sized firm. Then, casually, I said, Jessica, you've been so helpful these past couple years, coming by to check on me. I really appreciate it. She smiled. Of course, Barbara. Your family. I was thinking, though, maybe I've been letting you do too much. You're a busy woman. You don't need to be cleaning out my attic for me. Something flickered across her face. I was just trying to help. I know, but I've been thinking about what you said, about downsizing. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is time for me to go through things myself. Oh, she looked at Michael. Well, if you need help. Actually, I'd like to do it myself. It's something I need to do. For closure, you know? Going through Thomas's things. Our things. Deciding what to keep. I watched her carefully. She was smiling, but her jaw was tight. That sounds healthy, she said. But I wanted to ask you something. That day you were in my attic back in February. Did you move anything? I can't find a few things, and I thought maybe you'd reorganized. No, she said quickly. I didn't move anything. I just looked around. She was lying. I could see it in the way she glanced at Michael, in the way her hand tightened around her wine glass. Huh, I said. That's strange. Well, I'm sure things will turn up. The rest of the dinner was strained. Jessica made an excuse about not feeling well, and they left early. I drove home thinking about that lie. She'd said she didn't move anything, but Dorothy had seen her with garbage bags, so she had moved things. She'd taken things. What else had she taken? What else had she lied about? At home, I did something I'm not proud of. I went through my house with a list, writing down everything I could remember about what should be there. Thomas's things, my things, our things. It took me 2 days. When I was done, I had a list of 17 items I couldn't find. Thomas's pocket watch, his cufflinks, my mother's jewelry box, a quilt my grandmother had made, old photograph albums, a set of china that had been a wedding gift, and the dress. 17 things, not valuable in terms of money, none of them worth more than a couple $100 at most, but priceless to me. All of them gone. I sat at my kitchen table with that list, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Anger. Not the hot, sudden kind. The cold, steady kind. The kind that clarifies things. Jessica hadn't just taken my wedding dress. She'd been systematically removing pieces of my life, pieces of my history, making it easier for me to believe I was losing my memory, that I was forgetting things, that I needed to leave my home and go somewhere where I could be taken care of. And once I was gone, she and Michael would sell this house. They'd divide the money. Maybe Michael didn't even know what she was doing. Maybe he thought he was helping his forgetful mother by agreeing with his wife. Or maybe he knew. I didn't want to believe that, but I had to consider it. I needed proof, real proof, and I needed to know what had happened to my things, especially the dress. I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Robert Henley. He was in his 50s, grey hair, kind eyes. He came recommended by the lawyer I'd used when Thomas and I wrote our wills years ago. I met him at a coffee shop and told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be honest with you. This might not have a happy ending. Your daughter-in-law may have donated those items, or sold them, or thrown them away. We might not be able to get them back. I understand, I said, but I need to know what happened. I need to know I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, he said. And yes, I'll help you. He started with the obvious places. He checked local thrift stores, consignment shops, online selling sites. He looked for my mother's jewelry box, the pocket watch, the china. Nothing. Then he got more creative. He started following Jessica, not stalking, just observing her routines, seeing where she went. And 3 weeks into his investigation, he found something. Jessica had a storage unit, one she paid for with her own credit card, not the joint account she shared with Michael. Robert couldn't get into the unit. That would be illegal. But he could watch. And one Saturday afternoon, he saw Jessica go there. She was in the unit for about 20 minutes, then left. He called me. Mrs. Patterson, I think your things might be in that storage unit, but I can't confirm it without breaking the law. Can I get access to it? Not without her permission or a court order. A court order. That meant lawyers and judges and making this whole thing official. I thought about it. Did I really want to go that far? Did I want to drag my son into a legal battle with his wife? But then I thought about my wedding dress, about the silk my mother's hands had touched, about the lace from my grandmother's handkerchief, about standing at the altar in that dress, promising my life to Thomas. Yes, I wanted to go that far. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, no relation to the Mrs. Chen who'd brought egg rolls to my wedding reception, but I took it as a good sign anyway. Patricia listened to everything I had to say. She looked at Robert's report. She looked at my list of missing items. This is elder abuse, she said. Financial exploitation, at minimum, possibly theft. We can file for a restraining order and a court order to access that storage unit. I don't want to hurt my son, I said. I understand. But Mrs. Patterson, what his wife is doing, what she may have done, this is serious. You have rights. Your property has rights. It took 2 weeks to get a court date. In those 2 weeks, I didn't tell Michael what I was doing. I couldn't. Not yet. The day of the hearing, I wore my navy dress, the one I'd worn to Michael's wedding. Patricia was with me. Jessica and Michael were there too, with their own lawyer. Michael looked confused and hurt. Ma, what is this about? You'll hear, I said quietly. The judge listened to our case. Patricia presented the evidence, the missing items, Robert's surveillance, Dorothy's testimony about the garbage bags. Jessica's lawyer argued that I had no proof, that these were baseless accusations, that I was a grieving widow who was confused and trying to blame someone for my own memory problems. But then Patricia presented one more piece of evidence: financial records. Jessica had taken out a home equity line of credit on their house 2 years ago. $50,000. She'd told Michael it was for renovations, but the money hadn't gone to renovations. It had gone to pay off credit card debt. Jessica's credit card debt. She'd been living beyond their means for years, and she'd been hiding it from Michael. And she needed money. My house money. The judge listened to all of this. Then he ruled. He granted the court order to access the storage unit, and he granted a temporary restraining order preventing Jessica from disposing of any property that might belong to me. We went to the storage unit that afternoon. A sheriff's deputy came with us to oversee everything and make sure it was legal. Jessica had to open the unit herself. Her hands were shaking. The door rolled up. And there, in that metal box, was my life. The china still in its original box, the photograph albums stacked in a corner, Thomas's pocket watch in a Ziploc bag, my mother's jewelry box, the quilt. And in the back, hanging on a portable garment rack, was my wedding dress. I walked into that storage unit and I lifted the garment bag and I unzipped it. The silk was there, the covered buttons, the lace from my grandmother's handkerchief, my dress, my beautiful, precious dress. I held it against my chest and I started to cry. Not sad tears, angry tears, relieved tears. Why? I said. I looked at Jessica. Why would you do this? She didn't answer. She just stood there, her face white, her arms wrapped around herself. Michael was staring at all the items in the unit. Jess, what is this? What did you do? I was going to give them back, she said. Her voice was small. I was just keeping them safe. In a storage unit, I said. You were keeping my wedding dress safe in a storage unit? You took it from my home without asking. You hid it. And you let me think I was losing my mind. I didn't mean... You did mean it, I said. You've been trying to get me out of my house for 2 years. You took my things so I'd feel lost, so I'd think I was forgetting where I put them, so everyone would think I was too old to live alone. That's not true, she said. But she was crying now, and we both knew it was true. You wanted my house, I said. You needed the money, and you wanted my house. Michael was looking at her like he'd never seen her before. Is that true? Is that what this was about? Jessica didn't answer. The deputy documented everything. Patricia took photographs. We loaded all of my belongings into Patricia's car and mine. Michael helped. He didn't say much. He just carried things, his jaw tight, his eyes wet. When everything was loaded, I turned to him. Michael, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to learn about your wife this way. I'm the one who should be sorry, he said. Ma, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believed him. I could see it in his face. The shock, the betrayal. He'd been just as fooled as I had been. What happens now? He asked. That's up to you, I said. I didn't press charges. I could have. Patricia said we had a strong case for theft, for elder abuse, for financial fraud. But Michael was my son, and I didn't want to destroy his life. Instead, Patricia drew up an agreement. Jessica would pay restitution, $15,000, to cover the emotional distress and the cost of the investigation and the legal fees. She would stay away from me and my property unless I explicitly invited her, and she would attend counseling. If she violated any of these terms, I could still press charges. She signed the agreement. Michael left her 3 months later. He didn't do it loudly or dramatically. He just left. He rented a small apartment across town. He filed for divorce. I can't trust her anymore, Ma, he told me. I can't be married to someone who would hurt you like that, who would lie to me like that. I was sad for him, but I was also, quietly, relieved. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. Michael got the house. Turned out it was entirely in his name, the home equity loan Jessica had taken out notwithstanding. She got her car and half of their savings. And Michael started coming by again, twice a week like before. He mows my lawn. He fixes things. We have dinner together. Sometimes we talk about it, about what Jessica did, about why. I think she was always insecure, Michael said once. About money, about status. Her family had money, but she grew up watching her parents fight about it. I think it made her desperate to feel secure. And when she couldn't maintain the lifestyle she wanted, she panicked. That doesn't excuse what she did, I said. No, he agreed. It doesn't. We were sitting on my porch, the place where Thomas and I used to sit together in the evenings. The sun was going down, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, Michael said. I'm sorry I doubted you. You didn't know what to look for, I said. She was careful, she was patient, and she knew exactly how to make everyone think I was just a confused old woman. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, How did you know? How did you know to keep fighting? I thought about that. Because I knew my own mind, I said. I knew what was real, and I knew that dress meant something. It wasn't just fabric. It was your father and me standing at the altar. It was my mother's hands teaching me to sew. It was my grandmother's lace. It was proof that I had lived, that I had loved, that I had built something real. She tried to erase that, Michael said. Yes, but she couldn't, because it wasn't just in the dress. It was in me. The $15,000 Jessica paid. I didn't keep it. I set up a small scholarship fund at the community college where I'd taken typing classes when I was young. It's for students who've lost their parents and are putting themselves through school, just enough to help with books and fees. It's called the Thomas and Barbara Patterson Memorial Scholarship. It felt like the right thing to do, to take something ugly and turn it into something that might help someone else. Jessica moved away. I heard she went to another state, started over somewhere new. I hope she got the help she needed. I really do. I'm not angry at her anymore. I was, for a long time. But anger is heavy, and I'm tired of carrying heavy things. What I feel now is something sadder and more complicated. I feel sorry for her. Sorry that she was so afraid, so desperate, that she thought the only way forward was to hurt someone else. Sorry that she couldn't see what she had. A husband who loved her. A family who would have helped her if she'd just asked, because she was too focused on what she didn't have. And I feel grateful. Grateful that I found out the truth. Grateful for Dorothy, who paid attention. Grateful for Robert and Patricia, who helped me fight. Grateful for Michael, who chose to believe me even when it meant facing hard truths about his marriage. Most of all, I feel grateful for Thomas, for the 50 years we had, for the life we built, for that dress hanging in my closet right now, cleaned and pressed and waiting. I took it out the other day. I don't wear it. It doesn't fit anymore. And besides, where would I wear a wedding dress at 73? But I wanted to look at it, to touch the silk, to trace the line of covered buttons down the back. The lace from my grandmother's handkerchief is still perfect. 3 generations of women stitched into that neckline. My grandmother, my mother, me. And I thought about what that dress survived. Not just time, not just moths and humidity and the natural decay of fabric, but also greed, jealousy, someone's attempt to erase it, to throw it away like it didn't matter. But it did matter. It does matter. Because every person deserves to have their story honored. Every person deserves to have their memories protected. And every person, especially older people, especially women who've lived long lives and raised families and built homes, deserves to be believed when they say something is wrong. That's what I want you to take away from this story. If you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if someone is making you doubt your own mind, making you feel like you're forgetful or confused or too old to know what's real, I want you to know you're not crazy. Trust yourself. And if you're a Jessica, if you're someone who's so desperate for money or security that you're thinking about taking advantage of an older person in your life, I want you to hear this. Stop. Whatever you think you'll gain, it's not worth it. It's not worth the guilt you'll carry. It's not worth destroying someone else's peace of mind. It's not worth losing yourself in the process. There are always other options. There's always a better way. Michael asked me last month if I'd ever thought about what would happen to the dress after I'm gone. I've thought about it, I said. Do you want me to keep it? I looked at him. My son. My good, kind son, who looks so much like his father did at that age. When the time comes, I said, I want you to donate it to a bridal charity. One of those organizations that gives wedding dresses to women who can't afford them. Someone who needs a dress. Someone who's sewing their own life together from scraps and hope and determination. I want her to have it. I want her to wear those 50 years of love. I want her to carry my grandmother's lace down the aisle. Ma, are you sure? Don't you want to keep it in the family? It will be in the family, I said. Just a bigger family. The family of women who understand that a wedding dress is more than decoration. It's a promise. It's a beginning. It's proof that love is real and worth fighting for. He thought about that. Then he nodded. Okay, Ma. When the time comes, that's what I'll do. Thank you, I said. But that time isn't here yet. I'm still here. Still in this house that Thomas built shelves in and fixed the porch steps on and painted 3 times over the years. Still tending my garden. Still having coffee with Dorothy on Wednesday mornings. Still living my life on my terms. Jessica tried to take that from me. She tried to make me small, forgettable, erasable. But I'm still here. And so is my dress. Some things, it turns out, are harder to throw away than other people think. Some things survive. Last week, I had Michael bring down a box from the attic. Not the cedar chest, but a smaller box I'd put up there years ago. Inside were scraps from when I made my wedding dress. Little pieces of silk I'd saved, thinking maybe someday I'd use them for something. I took those scraps, and I made them into a small pillow. It took me 3 evenings. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, and my eyes aren't as sharp, but I managed. The pillow is about 8 inches square. I stuffed it with lavender from my garden, and I stitched one word onto it in simple embroidery. Remember. It sits on my bed now, next to where Thomas used to sleep. Every night before I turn off the light, I touch it, and I remember. I remember the girl who saved $17.32 in a coffee tin. The girl who spent 6 weeks at a sewing machine, building her own future 1 stitch at a time. The woman who walked down an aisle in a church basement, wearing every bit of hope she had on her back. I remember 50 years of marriage, the fights and the forgiveness, the laughter and the losses, the ordinary days that added up to an extraordinary life. I remember finding that empty garment bag and feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. I remember fighting to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I remember opening a storage unit and seeing my life spread out in front of me, stolen, but not destroyed. And I remember choosing not to let bitterness win, choosing to move forward, choosing every single day to live in love instead of anger. That's what Thomas would have wanted. That's what I want. Dorothy came over for coffee yesterday and she saw the pillow. Remember, she read aloud. That's lovely, Barbara. What made you make it? I needed a reminder, I said, that my life is real, that my memories matter, that no one can take those things from me unless I let them. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're a strong woman, Barbara Patterson. I'm a woman who loves her life, I said. That's all. And I'm not done living it yet. There's talk in the neighborhood that the house on the corner might go up for sale soon. The Hendersons are moving to be closer to their daughter in Florida. Michael mentioned it last week. Maybe you could get a neighbor your own age, he said. Someone to have coffee with, besides Dorothy. I like Dorothy just fine, I said, but I was smiling. It would be nice to have another friend nearby. Life goes on. That's what I've learned. It goes on whether you're ready or not, whether you're young or old, whether you've been hurt or not. The trick is to keep going with it, to not let the hard things stop you, to remember what matters and hold on to it with both hands. My wedding dress hangs in my closet now, not in the attic. I moved it down after I got it back from the storage unit. I wanted it closer. Sometimes I open the closet just to look at it, to reassure myself that it's really there. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I take it out and hold it up to myself in front of the mirror. I see the ghost of the girl I was, superimposed over the woman I've become. I see 50 years collapsed into a single moment. I see proof that I was loved, that I loved, that I built something real and lasting, and that nothing, not time, not loss, not theft, not lies, could take that away from me. That's what the dress means. That's what I fought for. And that's what I want to leave behind when I'm gone. Not just the silk and lace, though I hope some young woman wears it and feels beautiful, but the story, the truth that your life matters, your memories matter, your love matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't let anyone throw away your wedding dress, literal or metaphorical, and tell you it was just junk. It wasn't junk. It was your life, and your life is precious. I'm 73 years old. I've lived through loss and betrayal and heartbreak. I've also lived through joy and love and triumph. And I'm still here, still standing, still fighting for what matters, still remembering. Michael came by this morning to mow the lawn. Afterward, we sat on the porch with glasses of lemonade, watching the clouds move across the sky. Ma, he said, I've been thinking about what happened with Jessica, about the dress. What about it? I'm proud of you, he said, for not giving up, for trusting yourself, for fighting. I looked at him, at this man I'd raised, who'd gotten lost for a while but found his way back. Your father would have done the same thing, I said. He taught me that some things are worth fighting for. Not many things, but some. And the people you love, the memories you've made with them, those are always worth fighting for. I miss him, Michael said. I do too, I said. Every single day. We sat in silence for a while. Comfortable silence. The kind that only comes when two people don't need to fill every moment with words. Finally, Michael stood up. I should get going. But I'll be back Thursday. Maybe we can have dinner. I'd like that, I said. He kissed my forehead, the way Thomas used to. Then he walked to his car, turned and waved, and drove away. I stayed on the porch a while longer. The evening was coming on, soft and golden. Somewhere down the street, children were playing. Someone was grilling dinner. The smell of charcoal and summer drifted through the air. This life, this ordinary, precious, hard-won life. I thought about Jessica again. I wondered if she ever thinks about what she did, if she regrets it, if she's found peace wherever she ended up. I hope she has. I really do. Because carrying that kind of guilt, that kind of shame, it's too heavy. Life is too short to spend it weighed down by the worst thing you ever did. We all make mistakes, some bigger than others. The question is what we do afterward. Do we learn? Do we change? Do we try to make amends, even if we can't undo the harm? I don't know if Jessica has done any of that, but I hope she has the chance. As for me, I've made my peace with it. Not because what she did was okay. It wasn't. But because I refuse to let it define the rest of my life. I refuse to let her actions take up more space in my heart than they already have. I've had too much good in my life to let the bad overshadow it. 73 years of living, 50 years of marriage, one beautiful son, a garden that produces tomatoes every summer, a house full of memories, friends who show up, a wedding dress that survived everything thrown at it. That's what I choose to focus on. Not the betrayal, not the theft, not the lies, but the love, the persistence, the victory, the getting up every morning and choosing to live fully even when it's hard, even when someone has tried to convince you that you're too old, too forgetful, too much in the way. You're not in the way. You never were. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. I stood up from my porch chair, brushed off my dress, and went inside. I had leftover pot roast in the refrigerator that would make a fine dinner. I had a book from the library I wanted to finish. I had a life to live. Tomorrow, I'd work in my garden. I'd call Dorothy and confirm our Wednesday coffee date. I'd pay some bills and maybe bake cookies to take to church on Sunday. Ordinary things. The things that make up a life. But also extraordinary things. Because every day you wake up and choose to keep going, that's extraordinary. Every time you refuse to let someone else's cruelty make you cruel, that's extraordinary. Every time you fight for what matters, even when everyone tells you to let it go, that's extraordinary. I went to my bedroom and opened the closet. The dress was there, hanging in its garment bag, safe and protected. I unzipped the bag and touched the silk. Still cool, still smooth. "We made it," I whispered. "We're still here." And then I zipped the bag back up, closed the closet, and went to make my dinner. Because that's what you do. You survive. You remember. You honor the past. And then you live the present. Fully. Gratefully. Fiercely. That's what the dress taught me. That's what Thomas taught me. That's what this whole experience taught me. You're stronger than you think. Your story matters more than you know. And love, real, true, lasting love, can't be thrown away in a garbage bag and hidden in a storage unit. It survives. It endures. It wins.